The Prime Minister has handpicked Labor's by-election candidate for the Victorian seat of Dunkley after the death of Peter Murphy. Well, joining me now live here in our Melbourne studio is a former advisor to the Prime Minister and now a consultant at Orizontas, Dean Sherr. Great to have you in the studio. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Good to be here.
So Dunkley's going to probably take over a bit of the political attention over the coming month and a half. I mean, cost of living, no doubt, is going to be top of the campaign. What did you make of the Prime Minister's move this morning to essentially say to the Labor membership, I've picked a candidate, this is who it is?
Well, I think Labor members know that we always have a fraught relationship with democracy, at least we have over the last few years in Victoria. So obviously it's always preferable to have a local ballot, but in the circumstances, obviously, with this tragic death of Peter Murphy, who was just a wonderful human being and really one of the most genuine, sincere people you'll meet in politics, and she's a big loss.
Absolutely.
But obviously, with a by-election coming up, it's always important to get a pick in quickly. Labor's first off the blocks, and I think it's a really nice story. You know, a Frankston local, a mum who runs a local charity empowering disadvantaged women, who met Peter Murphy through work and who Peter Murphy recruited to the party. So what better way to pick a candidate?
Is this one that Labor shouldn't take for granted, though? Albeit, you'd think I mean, I want to try and be as respectful as I can here. You would think there'd be a lot of support for Peter Murphy and a lot of sympathy about the situation. But there are tough times at the moment with cost of living and whatnot. So is that a reason that Labor shouldn't take it for granted at all?
Absolutely. I know for a fact that Labor's not taking it for granted. It's a difficult time. Certainly, as you said, you know, the cost of living pressures. Hopefully we're towards the pointy end of that and we're seeing some of the data come in that inflation is now getting back down towards where we want it to be. It's not there yet, but it's come down significantly in the recent sort of, you know, the release that came out yesterday. But definitely Labor's not taking it for granted. I mean, I'm reminded of the Northcote by-election in Victoria. You might remember when Fiona Richardson, who was a long-time popular local member there and an outstanding minister in the Andrews government, when she passed away from cancer, and Labor lost that by-election to the Greens' Lydia Thorpe, but then won the seat back at the general election. So and still holds it now. Kat Theophanous is into her second term. So by-elections can do funny things. The Aston by-election did something very funny and historic a year ago. And yeah, you never know. You never know what, you know, people will vote on the day in Dunkley and they might want to send a message about something in particular. They might want to send a message to the government and that, you know, there probably will be a bit of a swing, you know, perhaps the government will be bracing for, but certainly, you know, just whatever happens, it doesn't necessarily predict what will happen at the general election.
What would be an acceptable swing, do you think? It's a 6% margin at the moment.
I mean, I think it's hard to say. I'm sure the government just wants to hold the seat.
Yep.
And I'm sure that Peter Dutton wants to get a big swing and to show people that he's in the game. So
I want to ask you about issues overseas now in the Middle East. You keep well across this. Penny Wong has spoken to her counterpart in Iran overnight. Now, that's not a usual conversation that would occur. Do you think Iran would listen to Australia at the moment, given these Middle Eastern issues, or is it sort of a full court press from different allies, do you think? I
think probably Iran does as Iran does, and they're, as the Prime Minister said this morning and as the Foreign Minister said consistently, they're the major destabilising force in the region, whether it's their support for the Houthis in Yemen and what's going on in the Red Sea at the moment, whether it's their support for Hezbollah in Lebanon or whether it's their support for Hamas in Gaza. You know, Iran's kind of at the centre of all of this instability and conflict. And whether they'll listen to Australia or not, it's right that Australia makes its voice clear and that we continue to work with the United States and our allies in trying to prevent the conflict from spreading further and to try and quell tensions in the Red Sea particularly.
Well, Dean, appreciate your time. Thanks for coming in. Always good to have your sharp analysis. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Dean Sherr there, a consultant at Orizontas and a former advisor to Anthony Albanese.